Hi, my name is Aitana. I'm here with the DailyClout, and we're here to speak today with two impressive people who have created a very, very powerful film. Mr. Josh Stylman is a concerned citizen and the executive producer of Anecdotal, a film that will be coming out shortly. And he teamed up with Jennifer Sharp from California, who's been a filmmaker for over 20 years and decided to work on this project due to her own personal experience after the COVID vaccination. So welcome to both of you. And Jennifer, would you like to jump in and tell us a little bit about yourself and how this project got started?
Yeah, sure. So this is actually an exciting time to be talking to you because we actually just released the movie yesterday.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and we have decided to just make it as available as possible because it's really important. We went through different strategies. So it's pretty much online, YouTube, Odyssey, the website, anecdotalsmovie.com, until it gets taken down, but we'll play the shuffle and we'll keep it going somewhere. You can find it. Anyway, so yeah, I had my Pfizer vaccine on March of 2021. And immediately you couldn't feel my face for like 3 or 4 weeks and like just weird stuff happening. And as I would tell people throughout the whole year of my reactions, like I realized I couldn't tell people. I realized most people didn't want to hear about it, who were very pro-vax. Like it was all about like, let's do the right thing. Let's be positive about the vaccination. If you've had a reaction, don't talk about it because that's not the greater good. And it was really wild. And then on top of it, just the symptoms I was having and the weird stuff with my body. And people kept telling me, you're a filmmaker. You should make this movie. You should document it. And in my head, I was like, no way, because I just finished my last film, which is a fiction, which is what I do. I've done documentaries. I do both, but I love fiction. And I just done this fiction project that had been in my heart forever. But I was still kind of at the end of it. And there's no way I'm starting another movie. No way I'm getting into this again. So I said no for the first full 8 months to a few people. Then I met Josh in New York, right when the mandates were happening, and things were getting more and more extreme because the mandates started controlling your life. Like I had one shot, so I was not allowed to participate in society. Josh owned a restaurant, and he was having a impromptu meeting of people who wanted to talk about vaccine mandates. And I was invited, and I told my friend who invited me, I don't think I'm allowed to go because I'm not vaccinated, and it's in a restaurant. And my friend was like, I think you'll be able to get in. So I went. That's when I met Josh. Again, we all went around. It was a really great time. Josh will tell you like his passion and how he came into this, but we really connected just talking about all the crazy stuff that was changing and with my reaction. And Josh was like the last person who was like, you're a filmmaker and you're not making a movie about this. And I was like, no. And then he was like, well, if you ever want to like reach out to me, I'd love to help you. I'd love to be involved how I can. Like I'm here. I believe in this. And then basically 2 months after that, when I lost my second job for not being vaccinated, and things were and people were still saying, oh, I've never heard of anybody with an adverse reaction. And I'm like, really? I'm in I have thousands of people in my support group, was when I was like, all right, let me see if I can get some help and like even emotional help, because I'm not about to do this movie by myself. So I reached out to Josh and was like, are you really down to help me make this movie? Like, it's going to be grassroots. We're going to have to do it. And Josh was like, yes, yes. And he gave me like the first push. And it was because of that I was like, as long as I know I'm not alone in this, I'll do it. And Josh said yes. And that is the birth of the movie.
Well, that's an incredible story of how it all came together. I thought I was still getting the sneak preview. I thought it was coming out next week, but I just finished the movie. And it's so powerful and so raw. And the subject, the title is just perfect. Anecdotal is really what it is. It's really just that collection of anecdotes that those of us who were kind of watching it have been seeing throughout the last almost 2 years now. And you just put it together so beautifully. So Josh, would you like to tell us, your thoughts towards this as we launch?
Sure. So, Jennifer described how we met, and from my vantage point, I was hosting these roundtables at the brewery I owned in Brooklyn that I subsequently resigned from when I spoke against the mandates and the community freaked out against me. We can get into that if you're interested, but my perspective on that is most people have either don't yet know that people are having adverse reactions to these vaccines, or they're turning a blind eye to people's obvious reactions to these so-called vaccines. So, we, as Jennifer said, we met up. There's probably 25 people in the room that night, kind of all walks of life. There were city workers there were entrepreneurs, there were concerned parents, there were a couple scientists in the room, and we went around, and Jennifer was the last one to go, and she was very quiet, and I didn't know anything about her other than she was a friend of a friend. And she started telling the story, not just of her reaction, but her friend's reaction to her reaction, about how, she can't tell anyone because she's contributing to vaccine hesitancy, which, if you recall how high the propaganda was at that time, it kind of makes sense. It's worn off on that component a little bit, although I would argue the propaganda on everything else is ratcheted way up. And then she started telling about her focus group or her support group, where there were hundreds of people that not only had similar reactions, but also reactions from their friends, reactions from their doctors who were either in denial or wouldn't give exemptions. And I was just sitting there and shaking with sadness and rage. Like, how are we doing this to these people? So as Jennifer said, I cornered her after, and she did say she wanted to make a film about it. And it was going to be a love story called, something to the effect of like Love in the Age of COVID. I was like, that sounds amazing. When can it be ready? And she was like, well, it'll take a couple of years. I was like, no, you need to make this movie now. And I'm just so glad she did, because again, there have been a few films made about this. I think most of them are trying to connect the dots on whatever the global grand conspiracy is. And mileage varies on, people's beliefs there. I think what Jennifer's done is a remarkable job of just telling the human stories, which are indisputable. There's real people suffering. And they're not only suffering physically, but they're suffering mentally because people aren't believing them. And she's done an incredible job just getting the story out. And hopefully more people will see the film. Even a couple of friends that I showed it to, one had a heart attack, and it was 2 weeks after his booster. His doctor did not mention that there may be heart complications after the vaccine. So he was like, oh my goodness, was this from my booster? And I don't know. And neither does he, but it does seem, and I think one of the subjects in the movie said that, these shots are the leading cause of coincidence, and that seems to be the case.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it also does seem to, it feels like the stories and the anecdotes are kind of ramping up and speeding up as your movie is coming out. And that combined with like Elon Musk throwing the gates open on Twitter, yes, it kind of adds to the excitement of your movie coming out and the hope that more people will see it.
Yeah, exactly. And just to be fair to you, like, this is a soft launch this week because we're dealing with technical issues and who's going to take it down and who's going to host it. So you can consider yourself the premiere. You're the first interview we've done. And so this is like the launch of the movie. So I just but in showing it, so it's been kind of a soft launch. We haven't done a lot of press for it or anything yet because we're just kind of slowly and I have gotten I've actually changed since yesterday in my intention, and I've been meaning I want to talk to Josh about this too, the comments I have been getting on YouTube, if anybody wants to go to the YouTube channel while it's still up and read the comments, heartbreaking. I read this really long comment today from someone who was like, I hope this isn't too long. And then he went on to explain his entire battle with his reactions and how he had heart issues and didn't know. And so he didn't do anything because he didn't know. And if he would have gone, this is my side note, if he would have gone to the doctor at the very beginning of those heart pain, I think he could have prevented the whole next year of suffering. But he never went to the doctor because he knew nothing about it. He just realized he had some weird heart stuff. Since then, it's just spiraled. He told this long story, and he was just like, and it started with thank you for, bringing this up, because this is my experience. And then his last sentence was, and I have never reported this adverse reaction. That was his last sentence. And he's not the only one. There's tons of messages I'm getting from other injured people who are like, you're giving me the strength to tell my story. And so I'm learning about what this film is doing as it's doing it. Like, I just didn't even know. So I'm actually kind of blown away.
I relate to some of that. Just that, talking to people and finding your own voice encourages other people to find theirs and to just keep going and spread the word and try and inform as many people as possible of just the things that we see going on around us every day. Here in Israel, there was actually a video project called the Vaccine Testimony Project back in 2021, at the end of 2021. I'm sure you're familiar with it. And it's honestly it's just heartbreaking that we're kind of still in this place where these things haven't been pulled off the market yet. And they're, gearing up for a winter push for children, for babies. It's really quite unbelievable. And I'm not sure how long the coincidence will continue to pervade as the narrative. What kind of feedback have you gotten from your immediate friends and family, like within your life?
So with me, like my favorite story is just that I actually haven't figured out how to roll it out to my immediate friends, because I know a lot of them are very pro-vax and they have fought me along the way. So a lot of people don't even know I made this yet. And I want to find the right moment to do a big presentation of it. And it might be when YouTube takes it down, because then I can be like, hey, why don't you guys see for yourself if you think this is something that should be censored, and do you have a problem with it? So I'm still, basically the answer, I guess, is I'm still a little apprehensive about how I communicate with them. I did show it to my niece, who has been very pro-vax. She's 15. I paid her $100 to help me quality control it, because I just need eyes on it, right? So I was like, hey, you want to earn $100? She actually had COVID, and she was at home in Brooklyn, and for the second time, I think she had it. And they're pro-vax, fully vaxxed. And I was like, hey, while you're down, do you want to watch my movie and give me eyes? I need quality control for glitches or blah, blah, blah. And she was like, sure. But I knew she was going to be offended by it, or, I wasn't sure. She watched it. At the end, she sent me a text, and she goes, I loved this movie.
Wow.
She goes, it's so unbiased and interesting and heartfelt. And anybody with an open mind is going to have to be open to this movie, even if they don't agree with you. You handled a very controversial matter in the least controversial way possible. I loved it. And that was my 15-year-old niece. So
that is a huge compliment. And I have to say, I agree with her, because it was just soft. There wasn't this the tension of triggering emotions that comes when you're trying to really get across an agenda. It was just a very soft way to tell people who may not be aware of what is actually happening around them.
Yeah, so, in fairness, New York City was paying kids $100 to get vaccinated, so it only seems reasonable that you could match that to watch the film. One thing I just want to clarify, though, is that the film, and I hope this was your takeaway, it's certainly not an anti-vaccine movie in any way. Jennifer was vaccinated. That's the point. That's sort of the jumping off point in the story. For what it's worth, I was vaccinated. I was merely outraged that the mandates to me were the big ratchet up. When I got the J&J shot, which I guess was more of a traditional vaccine, although obviously problematic because they eventually pulled it. But for me, it was for me, it was the mandates was the lightning rod, because how are we telling other people what they have to put in their bodies? It's a violation of Nuremberg, Helsinki, and just human decency. So, and what seems like most people either don't understand history, didn't understand science, that this drug was very experimental, didn't pay attention to the trials. Personally, I rationalized it by saying, I put enough shit in my body through the years, how bad could it be? And then I started paying attention when there was a lot of social pressure to vaccinate my children. And I watched, friends of mine getting shut out of society. So by no means is this film anti-vaccine in any way. Although it says a lot, just that the eggshells Jennifer has to walk on, even to get people in her life to see it. It's mind-numbing to me. Now, Jennifer, you've alluded a couple of times to YouTube censoring it. I really hope they don't. It's so telling that this is the time we're living in, and to me it's a direct reflection of why people don't know these stories. COVID has been a story of censorship, not one of science. Because if everyone knew what we knew and saw the stories that Jennifer's trying to shine a light on, we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. The shots would have been pulled a long time ago.
Exactly. Yeah, that's definitely true.
And just also to speak on Josh saying how YouTube censored it. So I actually uploaded 2 versions of the movie to YouTube, because if one went down, I'd have another one up right away. At least, I'm ready to go down with the ship till they cancel whatever. And they did already within like less than a half a day of having it up there. They already took one down. Luckily it wasn't the one that I've been promoting. Like it was the one I've been promoting the least. But I went and they had taken it down for medical misinformation. So it's already been taken off YouTube for medical misinformation. But I have 2 up and they don't know it. Now they do.
Yeah. They're
Yeah,
trolling
exactly.
DailyClout. Yeah.
Exactly. We'll get a lot of exposure and get eyeballs on your movie, and any platform that will host it for as long as they'll host it. In terms of the anti-vax argument that you're not anti-vax, neither of you are anti-vax. I would argue that none of those injured were anti-vax because they all took the vaccine. This is a story of maybe people who are more aware of thinking about medical decisions from a personal perspective than they would have been before, possibly. But the anti-vax label has been part of the censorship propaganda machine overall, it seems.
Yeah, and even if someone were anti-vax, well, first let me argue this is not a vaccine. They literally changed the definition of vaccine to retrofit the mRNA therapy.
And we all saw them do it in front of our eyes.
We all saw them do it. I mean, this is newspeak. This is straight out of 1984. So, it'd be one thing I'd be anti-mandate no matter what, because as I said, it goes against all basic human rights. However, I could at least understand the other argument if it stopped the transmission of disease. Those of us who read the clinical trials and understood them knew at the time that this didn't stop anything. This was a personal health choice, much like what we eat or if we decide to drink or whatever else, and we don't see government mandating any of those things. So it's utterly preposterous that this was presented as a community good when the reality was this was a personal health choice. And even then, it's all of the data has been misrepresented, and it's very, very debatable whether or not this is for your own personal good or not. But putting that aside, how can you impose that someone else put this shot in their body when the reality is it does nothing except potentially protect yourself? So that to me is the crazy part.
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting to see how many people don't even see it that way. They weren't even able to grasp that side of the argument, long enough to realize that it's kind of authoritarian, the mandates.
Yeah, it's all really, it is. And it goes both ways too. I just want to say it's so easy to kind of rag on the pro-vax people because we all see this light, right? And it's like they don't see that don't call us anti-vax, and they are doing that. However, another thing is that there's the very anti-vax. I hate to say anti-vax. We need better words, I know, because anti-vax
medical freedom movement is what I've been going.
White supremacists.
White supremacists. There we go. Thank you, Josh. But I don't know how to I hate the labels, and so I hate it. But you have to talk about the labels. So the people on the far anti-vax medical freedom side, but even anti-vax, it's interesting too, as I've released this movie, I've seen some comments too. I read other people's threads, and there's been a couple not angry people, but people who are like, well, I don't know why people would have taken it to begin with, and like just putting those in the comments, and like, can't we see in retrospect how this? And I saw another comment yesterday where someone was like, well, this movie is just too wishy-washy. It's like, it's not making the fact, which is the fact is that it has killed people, and and it was really great because the person who posted that actually calmed that person down. And what I have to say is that it's that irate side on that side too that pushes away the other side. And if you're very anti-vax, which doesn't mean bad, I'm not saying that even in a negative way, and you don't understand why the pro-vax people are so pro-vax, if you don't understand that and you want to get angry because they're not seeing what you're seeing, that doesn't help the situation either. Like, we both sides have to stop and understand, okay, we have both been fed different things by our different media. The fact that this movie was already taken off YouTube once shows that the people who are so pro-vax aren't seeing what the other people are seeing. And it really depends on media and algorithms and news feeds. And once we both sides start to understand each other and don't be so aggressive and angry and thinking like, we just need to tell you how it is and you need to believe it. Like, people aren't ready to do that. And so like, that's where I am, as I'm like, let's meet in the middle. Let's understand that we have to be softer. This is not, like Josh said, the movies you've seen already that are really great, but they're circulating amongst us on the people who understand. They're circulating on the anti-vax side. They're not making it across the line because everybody's like, that's such a great movie. It's saying everything, but it's not saying anything that we don't already know.
Who need to hear it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I gotta say, Jennifer, I'm sorry, Tana. I was just gonna say, I think it's great if you're pissing off everybody. That means you.
I was just gonna say that as well. You're doing something right, because you're right. We, like, the people who are coming with pitchforks to the people who ultimately were victims of propaganda and sometimes of physical harm. You know, they don't deserve that.
Yeah.
And hopefully there will be a time and a place for the justice of the actual crimes that have been committed. And right now your piece just seems like it's just telling the story of what happened, because people must hear the story in order to also just take charge of their own medical choices and realize that we have that right to have our own medical choices.
Yeah, and that's perfectly framed. I mean, one of the things that's happened in the last 18 months is that doctors stopped being your doctors, and now there are these invisible government administrators that are now in charge of everyone's healthcare, and it's a universal solution that goes against thousands of years of medicine. That makes no sense. And particularly people that always talk about following the science. You know, we knew, you know, in April 2020 that there's a massive risk stratification as it relates, or age stratification as it relates to risk. So, you know, my kids are not at the same risk as my mother. So why would we propose the same solution for these people? It just makes no sense. And again, this has sort of been bifurcated on the, or you know, split on the anti and pro-vax side. I think what Anecdotals does a great job of is forgetting about and explicitly calling out that this is not a political issue, although it's become one because of the, you know, the larger sort of zeitgeist right now. But the reality is these are just human stories, and these are people suffering, and they need to be heard. And I'm just hopeful that so many people watch this movie and maybe open their hearts and minds a little bit.
I mean, I hope so too. Going back to what Jennifer said earlier, how do you guys plan to get this across that line and to cross that invisible boundary that exists on the internet and in people's minds, really?
We're initially word of mouth. You know, we don't really have much of a budget. We're hopeful that people will see it and share it with their friends. We think this is going to be a ground up thing, you know, and particularly like, normally, you know, and again, I'm not a professional filmmaker, and this has been an amazing experience to be a part of, but like, my understanding is from people like Jennifer and other friends in the business that normally you make a movie, you do like a press tour, and you get, you know, you feature it in various publications. Here, it's sort of like we're promoting this with two hands tied behind our back. You know, she put the movie up yesterday and one already got censored. So, you know, it's a whack-a-mole game. So the hope is people will see it. You know, hopefully the people who are in the film will share it. Hopefully people who watch it are affected by it. The early reaction, you know, it's only been, you know, 24 hours, even less. The early reaction has been extraordinarily positive. And we'll see. You know, again, if Twitter, I do think that timing is very interesting with all the censorship stuff on Twitter, as you alluded to, Elon. So if YouTube does take it down, you know, our hope is Elon Musk will watch the movie, and, you know, there's a massive communication platform, and maybe they'll host it or point to somewhere on it. We'll see.
Yeah, it's also just even adding on that, I'm been getting a press release ready, and the person who's getting my press release ready was like, okay, we're having it double checked, triple checked, because there's a really good chance that they'll deny the press release. Because she said, I actually already had
various outlets that are more mainstream and traditional. Okay.
Yeah. She said she already had experience with trying to get something else out of her own thing, and it was denied. They wouldn't post the press release. So she said, we're trying to make your press release foolproof and like not political and all that, but just be ready, because you might not get a press release.
Wow,
think about the lunacy. We got a note from YouTube that said medical misinformation because Jennifer told her own personal story of injury and others like her. That is medical you're not allowed to tell your own story.
Yeah. And at the same time, you can still go to YouTube right now and look up Anthony Fauci saying, if you get vaccinated, you will not get the virus. Rachel Maddow, Walensky, like all those clips are still on YouTube. They haven't been taken down. And my movie is called Anecdotals. And I even question in the movie, maybe we're rare. Maybe we are just the 3%. Like I even say that, which is not medical misinformation. It's true that there's a small percentage. So like, I'm not, get me started on that. It's just like crazy.
Right. The data would suggest you're not that small.
Yeah.
And it's growing.
Unfortunately. Well, if there is anything else you would like to share, I would love to hear it. And also if you want to tell people where should they go for the best chance at getting to see your movie?
So the best chance would be, would go to the website, anecdotalsmovie.com. And that's where we'll host whatever is up at the moment. But right now it's on YouTube. It's on Odyssey. Odyssey, it will be up. I don't think they'll take it down. So it should be on Odyssey pretty permanently. YouTube is where we're trying to get the hits until it gets taken down. So, and then also just to add on to something Josh said, I would just like to say, as far as getting it to the right people, I would also, if you like the movie, a lot of people really love it. If you like it, please think of somebody in your life who you would like to share it with, who you've had arguments or disagreements with, or just discussions with, because I really made this movie for pro-vax people who just don't know things. Like there's obviously people who you'll never win. But I think there's a lot of people who just need their minds opened. They're not going to watch this on their own. They're not going to see a link and say, oh, let me watch this movie. But if you are their brother, sister, friend, daughter, cousin, and you say, hey, would you watch this for me? It tells you a little bit of what I've been seeing. I'd love you to watch this. They will watch it then. And those are the people we're trying to get to. So think about the people you can share it with.
I love that.
Yeah.
The only other thing I'll add is that we're also on Twitter and Instagram as @AnecdotalsMovie. And at AnecdotalsMovie. And the hope is more people will share their stories. And, we already saw some people putting #anecdotals, and we're hoping that continues. And people, again, this movie hopefully puts a little wind in the sail, and then people are going to speak up, and the community will ultimately own this. Jennifer made this film for the world.
I mean, it's a beautiful and heartbreaking film and tale of what we've all gone through. It's definitely made me a fan of Jennifer Sharp, and I'm going to look up your past work, your fiction.
The comedy.
Una great movie. It's fantastic.
Yeah, Una great movie. It's on Amazon. It's a comedy, right? Like, so for those of you, like, we're so serious, but if you just are like, I want to watch something comedic, it's still cerebral. It's still, I'm always thinking about things, but it's funny. So check that out.
And really, to all the viewers, this movie is a compilation of all of the very courageous and brave individuals who have been really taking up this flag of medical freedom from the very beginning, and testifying at different scenarios, and just sharing their stories, making themselves public when they were previously private, just for the sake of sharing really critical information with the world. So I'd like to encourage everybody to go and watch Anecdotals. Again, anecdotalsmovie.com and Anecdotals Movie on the social media platforms. And I'm excited to make a big deal out of this all over DailyClout and on my platforms, because I really think this is something that needs to be viewed by the world. So thank you both for being here with us at DailyClout. And the last word is yours, if you have anything to say.
No, thank you. And I appreciate the time and the platform, and in a place where we're having a hard time getting a platform. So let's all be our own platforms and take that power away and come together.
Amen. And use new media. Take a hammer to traditional media.
And thank you for all the work you and DailyClout are doing. You guys have been a very powerful voice through the last couple of years.
Yeah, I can agree that the team at DailyClout is absolutely fantastic. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf of DailyClout, and I am asking you to please, if you like the video you just saw, support us, become a member, donate. You can send checks to P.O. Box 24, Millerton, New York, 12546, or go to DailyClout, DailyClout, become a member or donate. Thank you so much for your support. Every penny goes for paying our hardworking staff, paying hosting costs, and paying our lawyers who have been leading the fight to keep you safe and free, to keep the Constitution safe and to keep you free. Thank you so much.